Hi everyone, this is Callie. Welcome to another video for the 5 Ways in 5 Days holiday series. Today I'm creating 3 cards and sharing 5 different ways for you to add holiday sparkle to your cards. So let's get started because we've got a lot to go over. My first card is going to be featuring this embossing folder, and it's called Glistening Snowflakes. And what a lot of people love about Simon Says Stamp embossing folders is they often come with a coordinating die. So we're going to be using that later to share another way to add sparkle to your cards. But for now, I'm going to start with my first technique, which is using mica stains to add some color and shimmer at the same time. So I've got 2 bottles of mica stain here, one's a pink and one's a purple, and I'm just going to spray it directly onto some Hammermill cardstock. I'm starting out with the pink color, and I really want to just add it to the corners, and then I'm going to start spraying with the purple to fill in that white paper. And then once I'm happy with how the purple looks, I'll go back in with the pink and further cover more white if I want to, and to get more saturation onto my cardstock. So I'm pretty happy with this, and in this video it does look a lot lighter. In person it's beautiful, so shimmery, and the color is much more vibrant and much more saturated. So as you can see, this is one way to add some shimmer and sparkle to your card, and it's not a complicated process. I don't consider myself a mixed media girl at all, but this is definitely something I can handle. And as you can see, I just use an old box that I use over and over again to use on any sort of spray stains or mica stains like this. So I ran this piece of cardstock through an embossing folder after drying it just a tad with my heat gun, and you get this beautifully embossed image, and you still have all of that shine and sparkle on the cardstock. Next, I'm going to pull in that coordinating die, and we're going to add a second way to add sparkle, and that's using glitter cardstock. What's easier than using glitter cardstock when you want to add some sparkles to your card? So this is the Christmas holiday pack, but Simon Says Stamp carries all sorts of colors and assortment packs that you can buy. I just happen to have this closest to me, and there are 2 colors in here that I'm going to be using for today's cards. Quick and easy. And so I die cut the snowflake, and now I'm just adding some glue behind it. I die cut the snowflake background using vellum, and I'm attaching my snowflake on top of that. You can layer this up and stack the snowflake for more dimension, but I'm going to be using foam adhesive on the back of this, and we already have the dimension from the embossed snowflake on our background panel, so I didn't want to overdo it with additional stacking. Okay, so once I finish putting my snowflake together, I'm going to go ahead and cut little squares of foam adhesive and just adhere them onto the back wherever I can. And the reason why I like to use foam adhesive to attach things like this onto an embossing folder image is because there's different amounts of raised areas, and I feel like the foam kind of eliminates the unevenness of the paper, if that makes sense. So I'm done with my background. I'm going to go ahead and add a third way to add sparkle, and that's using sequins. That's super easy, right? I'm going to dump some onto my little triangle tray here from Simon Says Stamp. It keeps all of my sequins in one place, and I can easily transfer it back into my sequin container when I'm done. So now I'm going to use some liquid adhesive, and I'm just going to add a few dabs here and there to kind of visualize where I want my sequins and snowflakes to go, and then I'll attach those sequins on there first, and then I'll work with the smaller ones to evenly fill out the open spaces on my card. I'm not being too strategic about where I put these little dabs of glue. I just know that I want sparkles everywhere, so feel free to be a little bit more strategic about it. I'm just trying not to overthink this card too much. And then to finish up this card panel, I'm going to add some sequins to the center of that large snowflake. It kind of ties it all in and makes the bluish hue from those snowflakes a part of the large snowflake. So once I'm done with this, I'm going to go ahead and set this card panel aside. We will work on sentiments at the very end. And now we're going to work on our second card, and I'll share new ways for you to add some sparkle to your card. I have the winter floral layering set here. There are 4 stencils to this set. It is an older stencil set, but it's well loved, and I love how it turns out. I'm going to use the Tim Holtz grip mat here on my glass board. That'll help me hold my cardstock in place as I ink blend so that my cardstock does not move around. Super handy to have, and I love when I do remember to use it because, as I've said before, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind sometimes. So when I remember to use it, I'm so grateful for it. Okay, so I have my cardstock in place, and I'm just gonna tape down my stencil here with some see-through tape, and once it's in place, I can go ahead and start ink blending these images onto my white card panel. Okay, we're going to start here with that first layer. It's going to be poinsettias. So I am using a deep pink here. This is watermelon ink from Simon Says Stamp. I'm going to start at the center and bloom the color out so you get a softer color towards the edges and points and tips of the poinsettia. And then I will do that for all of the flowers. I want the deep concentrated color to be at the center of the flowers. It just creates a lot more dimension and interest to the ink blending. So I'm going to do that, and I'm using circular motions going clockwise and counterclockwise to get an even blend of the color onto the cardstock. When I'm done with that first layer of ink, I'm going to introduce a darker color. This is cherry, so it's going to be a deeper red, and it's going to add a lot more interest and depth to these flowers. So I'm ink blending just towards the center and around the two nooks and crannies of each petal on the larger petal, if that makes sense. And I'm concentrating the color at the base of those petals. Once I'm done with this layer, I am done with this stencil. So we're going to go ahead and remove this stencil. Again, as you can see, my paper is not moving. That grip mat is amazing. And then I'm going to add the second layer. There aren't numbers on these stencils, so you can use and create in whatever order you like. I always find it easiest to blend the flowers first and then work with the foliage. So I'm using pine ink here for these pine branches, and I am concentrating deeper color at the stem of each of the pine and then blending it lighter out, just like I do with the flowers. So that was a super simple layer. This third layer has two different types of foliage. So I'm going to be using the same mini ink blender brush, and I'm just scrubbing some of that color off so I don't get a different blend of color. I want my colors to look different. So I'm using field ink now, and I'm again adding the color and concentrating at the stem of each of these foliage stems. The stencil layer has a second type of foliage, so I'm using a different color. I'm now moving on to field, which is a brighter green. So again, ink blending and concentrating the color at the base of each of these leaves or petals, and I'm blending it from darker to lighter, and I'm kind of fanning it out from each of the flowers. So as you can see, it's darker closer to the flowers and then lighter as you move away from the flowers. So when I'm done with this layer, we have one last final layer to do. So I'm going to go ahead and peel this off and add my last layer, which consists of the flower centers and some berries around the flowers. You can make the berries a different color. I just decided to keep it simple and go with the same yellow as what I'm blending inside those centers of those flowers. Now when I'm done, I'm going to go ahead and cut off 1/8 of an inch off all of the sides. That's going to be a 1/4 inch matting all the way around a card base later. I went ahead and trimmed it now as opposed to later because I didn't want to have to trim off any of the excess Nuvo drops that I'm going to be putting on it as a fourth way to add sparkle to your card. As an alternative to this product or method, you can also stencil on some glitter paste or even add some transfer gel so that you can foil some pretty gold shimmery foil onto the flower centers and berries. Now to finish this card panel, I decided I also wanted to add sequins. So this has already been covered in our 5 ways to add holiday sparkle, but I just wanted to reuse the technique because I really do love adding sequins to card panels. I feel like it adds a lot of dimension and interest, and I love the colorful ones that I'm able to use because, as you know, I love my iridescent sequins. They go with everything, but any chance I get to draw in color like I am for this panel, I'm going to use it. Anyway, this finishes my second card panel. Again, we're going to be working on sentiments at the very end. So I'm going to go ahead and set that aside, and we're going to work on our third card, which uses this berry wreath die set. We're going to revisit the use of glittered cardstock because that's so much fun and it adds so much interest to your cards, especially on die cuts. And it makes it so easy, and you can use the green for the foliage if you want to, but I don't want to add too much shimmer, so I'm just going to use the red glitter paper for the berries. For the green, I die cut my foliage using some green leaf cardstock and green apple cardstock, and I die cut my wreath out of Nina Desert Storm cardstock, and then I've attached all of my berries. Before I add my wreath to a white card panel, I did trim it down to 3 3/4 by 5 inches, and that'll mat another card base later on for more interest. But here I am attaching green foliage, the lighter green stems, onto my card first. I wanted to adhere it directly onto the white because I knew I was going to layer a lot of the darker foliage on top, so you don't need a whole lot with these 4 lighter color stems. So on the back of my wreath, I did add a bunch of foam squares onto the berries at the center of the wreath, or the round portion of my wreath. And now I'm applying all those smaller stems that I die cut using the darker green cardstock. I'm applying adhesive on the stem of the leaves only, and then I'm using my picker tool here to hold down the stems in place until they've adhered themselves to the white cardstock or whatever it is that it's attaching itself to. So this is going to create some dimension without you having to zhuzh up those leaves, and it's sticking up in between the berries, and it's creating lots of dimension and depth. So I'm going to work my way around and finish all of the foliage that I die cut. I even die cut it an additional time just so I can make my wreath a little bit more full. Okay, so when you're happy with your wreath, you can go ahead and stop or die cut more, however you want your wreath to look. I'm introducing my 5th way to add some holiday sparkle to your cards, and that's using some glitter. Simon Says Stamp carries this unicorn dust and unicorn confetti, and I'm going to show you how I like to apply these unicorn dust and confetti products onto your card. I'm using some glossy accents, and I'm kind of skipping stems here and there because I'm going to work with the unicorn dust first and then work with the confetti later. I'm just adding a little line of adhesive, and then I'm going to sprinkle my unicorn dust all over, and that's going to adhere itself to the glossy accents, and then I can just flick all the excess off of my panel. So as you can see here, there's some lines of some glitter, and it kind of looks like snow sitting on top of a leaf, right? So that makes it super interesting and super fun. And sometimes I like to use flocking instead of glitter. So if you don't want too much glitter on your projects, you can use some flocking, which is also fun for a winter card. So now I'm going through the process again, adding some more glossy accents on the tips and lines of the leaves, and then I'm going to use a chunky glitter this time so that you can see bigger chunks of glitter, and that's going to add some interest, and it's going to be evenly filled out all around where the unicorn dust was. So we have our 5th way of introducing some holiday sparkle to your card. Now all 3 card panels are done, so we can go ahead and work on finishing these with some sentiments. I decided it would be fun to throw in an extra way to add some holiday sparkle to your cards. So I'm going to be doing some foiling, and I thought it would be fun to use these foil plates from Simon Says Stamp to add our sentiments, and then to use some sparkle and shiny foil. And so I have my platform here heating up, and I'm going to use this speckled prism. It's got some sparkle in it, so I thought that was pretty appropriate for these cards. And then I'm also going to use some gold foil for the joyful word. So I went ahead and put my foil and my foil plates down when my platform was ready, and then I'm going to hit the timer button once I have it all ready to go. That timer indicator is going to keep blinking until it's ready to go. So I go ahead and set my little shim plates on top of my foil plates to keep everything nice and hot. And when that blinker stops blinking, I'll go ahead and remove my platform and run it through my die cutting machine and then redock it before I pull everything off of the platform here. Usually the foil comes off with the cardstock, but this time for some reason it stayed on the platform, which is fine too. I don't know about you, but I often don't have a great foiling experience, but I think both of these turned out really good, just with a minor flaws. So I have a trick or a tip for you. If you have spots that don't foil well, instead of refoiling and getting stressed out or worried about it like I used to do, I use a similar Copic marker and just fill in those areas. Okay, so now I'm going to use die sets that coordinate with these foil products, and I'm going to die cut these sentiments out. So I have the joyful die as well as the joyous Christmas die, and I'm going to go ahead and run those through my die cutting machine, and they coordinate perfectly. So I have these 2 sentiment words that are foiled for some additional sparkle and shine on your cards, and I'm going to lay everything out and see where I want to use things, and I'm going to go ahead and adhere these down with some foam adhesive onto my cards. So that's 2 cards down out of 3. On my last card, I'm just going to go very simple and use a pre-printed sentiment. This is the Simon Says Stamp Reverse Christmas Wishes set. And I went ahead and selected and trimmed the sentiment that I want to use for my card. I'm using a Copic black marker to hide the white core before I add some foam adhesive on the back of this and attach it to my card. I'm going to use my trusty T ruler here to make sure that my sentiment is lined up nice and straight before I adhere it down. And then last but not least, what I have to do is adhere them all over card bases. As you can see, I've already adhered that Joyful Wreath one over a cream card base, and then for the other 2 cards, I'm using a simple white card base. Okay, so I'm done with my 3 cards. Let's recap the 5 ways in which we added holiday sparkle to our cards. The first technique uses some mica stains to add sparkles for a background. The second technique uses sequins. The third technique uses some glitter cardstock. And the sparkly hot foil is more of a bonus. But the fourth way uses a glitter glue on these centers and berries on my cardstock. And I also reintroduced the use of sequins as well as glitter paper on my third card. And the fifth and final way is to add some dry glitter to your card using an adhesive. So there you have it, 5 ways to add holiday sparkle to your cards. I hope you enjoyed these projects, and I hope that it inspires you to create some holiday projects with extra sparkle this year. Thank you so much for stopping by. If you're interested in any of the products that I use, be sure to check out the links below. Everything will be linked for your convenience. Thank you so much for joining me today, and have a wonderful day. Bye, everyone.
Hi there, I'm Heidi, Simon's mama and founder at simonsaysstamp.com. Thank you so much for watching our video. If you like what you just saw, be sure to press the thumbs up and subscribe to see more great content.